The Super Nintendo had 721 games released for it in North America. With a library of that many games, what are some essential games for a Super Nintendo collection? This video is gonna be part 1 of 2 of games that I think are essential games on the Super Nintendo. This is all gonna be my personal opinion. Some of these games I played as a kid. Some of these games I just recently learned about and figured out that these need to be in an essential list for the Super Nintendo. I wanted to share my thoughts about some of these games with you. I couldn't just pick 10 games on the Super Nintendo. There's way more than 10 games that are essential for the Super Nintendo collection. So we're gonna look at 10 of them here next week. Tune in for that video too. We're gonna look at another 10. These are just my personal opinions. I could be totally wrong. Your opinion very well could be very different from some of these ones that I'm gonna pick. So follow along, let me know at the end of the video, leave me a comment. What games would you put in an essential list for the Super Nintendo? Tell me what ones I got right and what ones I got wrong in your opinion. So let's jump into the very first one. This one I think would probably be an essential game on almost everyone's list. Let's check it out. So the very first game I want to talk about that I think is an essential game in almost any Super Nintendo collection is gonna be that iconic Super Mario World. This one came to us on August 23rd, 1991. It's the 4th game in that Super Mario Brothers series. It's the first Mario game on the Super Nintendo, and it's the best-selling game on the Super Nintendo. Clocking in at about 20 million copies sold worldwide, this game was an essential game back in the 90s. And really, it is an essential game for the Super Nintendo collection. This one brought back those plumber heroes of Mario and Luigi. It also brought back Princess Peach, Bowser, the Koopalings, and for the first time, brought us everyone's favorite dinosaur, the T-Rex. Nope, that's not right. It's totally Yoshi. Now, as a kid that got this game back in 1991 and remembers playing it for the very first time, sitting on my bed, eyes wide with excitement as I watched Mario take his very first steps on the 16-bit platform. This is a game that I absolutely love. From the gameplay to the characters, sprites, the story to the adventure of finding all the hidden paths and secret exits in all the levels, this game took a Mario game and literally slammed a super mushroom down its throat. Everything was bigger, everything was better, and Super Mario World to this day is something that I love to play. This one is a must-have in any collection. So many of us played it and experienced it back when the Super Nintendo was new and fresh. Now, I probably don't need to explain much about Super Mario World. I feel like if you're watching this video, you probably know all there is to know about it, but that side-scrolling platformer game, the colors, the adventure, the world we could explore, riding Yoshi around, the things that Yoshi could do, this game is so incredible. This is absolutely an essential game for the Super Nintendo collection. And at about $18, I feel like if you're one of the 4 people out there that don't have a copy of Super Mario World, you could probably find it and pick it up and add it to your collection, and you're really gonna enjoy it. Now, the next game I want to talk about that I think is an essential game in any Super Nintendo collection is gonna be Super Metroid. Now, Super Metroid is the third game in the Metroid series. This one comes to us after the events of Metroid 2, Return of Samus, that we saw on the Game Boy. This game I had never actually played until a few months ago when we picked it as a weekly Warp Pipe rental on the weekly Warp Pipe podcast. And I'll tell you what, I spent years missing out on what is a truly epic adventure. Now, I can remember renting Metroid on the NES back in the day. I think I played it at a friend's place at some point as well, and I never really got into the original Metroid game. I didn't know what I was doing. I never knew where I was going or how I was supposed to get there, so I kind of shied away from this series. And what a mistake that was, because Super Metroid is one of the best games on the system. I truly regret not having this one in my collection earlier. Knowing what I know now, this is totally an essential game for the collection. With an amazing atmosphere and music that fits perfectly for almost every area you're exploring, Super Metroid sets the mood so incredibly well. It's the type of game that makes you want to explore. It makes you want to check all those corners, and it rewards you from dropping that bomb in the right place to open up a new and secret area to hunt for that power-up. Super Metroid is loved by so many people. It's got parts in it that I honestly don't even want to talk about here because they're so jaw-dropping that I just don't want to ruin them for you if you haven't played the game. As someone that didn't have this one in his collection until just recently, I'm telling you, this game is absolutely an essential game to have in any Super Nintendo collection. Coming in at about $70, you can pick up either the original copy or a player's choice cartridge, and honestly, it's absolutely worth every single penny. Super Metroid is an amazing game, worth playing, worth checking out. This game, totally one of the best games on the system. All right, we're gonna get a little more pricey when we talk about the next game on this list, but I think this is absolutely an essential title in any Super Nintendo collection because Chrono Trigger is one of the best RPGs on the system. A lot of people are gonna tell you that even for $233 right now, this one is absolutely an essential game to have in a collection, just for the replayability alone. Chrono Trigger was a game that shook me to my core as a kid. Playing this one for the first time, being introduced to the characters, the story, and that time-traveling mechanic was totally mind-blowing for me. This game literally set the bar for RPGs for so many people. Coming to us on August 11th, 1995 in North America, Chrono Trigger's development team included 3 designers that Square actually dubbed the Dream Team. Starting out in this one, we all thought we were in store for just another standard RPG. I play as a character, I'm adventuring around a festival, I'm having fun, and then something crazy happens. It's at this point that this game takes a standard RPG that we'd all seen on the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo up to this point and steers away from those randomly encountered monsters for the most part. Seeing those enemies bounce around as I was adventuring through the areas was a change for the RPGs that I was used to as a kid, with the monsters either just kind of wandering around the areas or hiding, waiting to jump out at me. This game really had me scratching my head. And then I bumped into one of the monsters and suddenly was thrown back into that standard RPG turn-based style battle system. This game is incredible. This is an essential playthrough for anyone that enjoys an RPG style game. The characters are amazing. The story is so great. I love this game. It's so much fun to play through, and it has 12 different endings on the Super Nintendo. You can literally play through this one, have an absolute blast with it, put it down, not even look at it for a year, and then when that RPG itch needs to be scratched again, throw it in the system, make some different choices along the way, and end up with a completely different ending. And you can do that 12 times. Now, I'm no math whiz, but I'm pretty sure 233 divided by 12 is potato. So this one, for replayability alone, is probably worth saving your pennies and adding it to your collection if you don't have it already. This, again, is an amazing game. One of the best role-play games on the Super Nintendo. A lot of people would argue this is the best RPG on the Super Nintendo. It's totally worth playing. It's absolutely probably worth the price tag that it is right now. It's just such a great game. If you haven't played it, you're missing out. Chrono Trigger, absolutely an essential game on the Super Nintendo. If we're talking about essential games for the Super Nintendo, I feel like we have to talk about the only Legend of Zelda game that we actually saw on the system, with Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Released for the Super Nintendo in North America on April 13th, 1992, this game brought back everything that was amazing about the original Legend of Zelda game on the Nintendo. With that departure in gameplay we saw in Legend of Zelda: Adventure of Link, when I first saw the commercials for A Link to the Past, I knew that this one was going to make me a lifelong Zelda fan going forward.
This time, it calls you to the ultimate battle of good against evil. To a quest few are prepared for, and fewer still survive. But perhaps now the power is within your grasp. It's the game that's already a legend. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Only on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Now you're playing with superpower.
Now, personally, I think this is my favorite Legend of Zelda game of all time. I love that top-down version that we saw in this one, and this one really took everything the Super Nintendo could muster to give us an incredible adventure. With that dark world and that light world, there's areas only accessible by jumping from one world to the next. It's got epic monsters, it's got crazy puzzles, and it really just all around has amazing gameplay. A Link to the Past is a must in any Super Nintendo collection. Right from the start with this one, the moment we take control of Link as we follow his uncle into Hyrule Castle to save Princess Zelda, this game takes us on a ride. Honestly, looking back at the Legend of Zelda series, I kind of wonder what it would have been like if they had made the decision to make Adventure of Link another top-down style action-adventure game similar to this one and the first one. I'm really glad they went back to this gameplay style with A Link to the Past. This one comes in at about $35 for a price tag right now. This one is absolutely the perfect fit when it comes to an essential game on the Super Nintendo. The next game I'm gonna put in my essentials list on the Super Nintendo is gonna be NHL 94.
Stop it. Get some help.
Okay, I get it. Why would I put NHL 94 on an essentials list for the Super Nintendo? I kind of wanted to look at a bunch of different genres of games when I was doing these lists. So for $9, I feel like NHL 94 is a great choice for a sports game that is an essential game on the Super Nintendo. Honestly, as a Canadian kid that grew up not even knowing how to stand up on hockey skates, I was a bit of an outcast when almost every other kid in my middle school was on a hockey team. But that didn't stop me from being a star player in NHL 94. NHL 94 was released on a few different systems. In September of 1993, we saw it on the Sega Genesis. In November of 1993, we also got it on the Super Nintendo. Now, even though these games are titled the same, they're honestly pretty different games when it comes to the Genesis version or the Super Nintendo version. For me, growing up with that Super Nintendo, NHL 94 was one of the only sports titles that I actually owned. And honestly, I played way more of it than I really want to admit at this point. In this one, they maintained that vertical camera angle, and they had player rosters from the 1992-1993 season of the NHL. And this one includes, for the very first time, the new teams of the Anaheim Mighty Ducks and the Florida Panthers. This one is truly loved by so many people. It became the very first one to introduce that one-timer shot that so many of us used to use and abuse back in the day. This is totally an essential game on the Super Nintendo if you're into hockey. And honestly, even if you're not into hockey, look up the Pixelated Heroes documentary on YouTube. You'll be really surprised what this game means to so many people out there.
It has the triumphs and the failures, all of it's in there. And if you can get that into your documentary, then you really have something.
You could become your hero. You could be that person.
Every memory I have is just happiness.
It's hard to explain. It's fun.
That was just a great experience playing that for the first time.
Whoosh, like a wave. I just got those goosebumps.
You could pretty much do what you wanted to do when you wanted to do it every single time.
It's an archaic video game that's found in pawn shops.
I had only known the Genesis version.
I'm a Super Nintendo guy.
This is where winners become winners!
I've got an addiction, and it's called NHL 94, and you're just gonna have to deal with that.
The next game I want to talk about is Mortal Kombat 2. All right, I know that the Genesis version of the first Mortal Kombat game had all the blood and guts that any preteen kid could handle, but some of us didn't have the Genesis and weren't that edgy, cool kid on the playground. Some of us just loved Mario and were kind of mama's boys. On the Super Nintendo, for us, we got that first Mortal Kombat game, and it was a tamed down version of that epic fighting game. But with the second entry in the series, Nintendo finally decided to allow depictions of blood and brought us those fatalities on the Super Nintendo. Mortal Kombat was firing on all cylinders back in the 90s. The lineup at the arcade to get to challenge the person that knew all the moves on that Mortal Kombat game was insane. I can remember walking into the arcade and for the very first time seeing that cabinet. I swear there was a light that shone down from the heavens when I walked in and saw that arcade cabinet. It was all I wanted to play, which, looking back on it, that was probably some good marketing by the guy that owned the arcade to have that spotlight in the rafters for that one. But when I finally got my copy of Mortal Kombat 2 on the Super Nintendo that I could play at home, I was addicted. Now, I had Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo already, and it was a lot of fun to play. But the second one in the series was mind-melting. Coming to us on September 9th, 1994, Mortal Kombat 2 improved the gameplay and expanded the mythos of the original Mortal Kombat game. It introduced more finishing moves, making it so we had several fatalities per character. It added new finishers like the Babality and the ever hilarious Friendship. It brought us more iconic characters like Mileena, Katana, Kung Lao, that hidden character of Noob Saibot, and we finally got to that series recurring villain of Shao Kahn. Mortal Kombat 2 is a game that I would say is an essential fighting game for the Super Nintendo. And this time around, it might have even been a better arcade to home port than the Genesis version. Now, I enjoy Mortal Kombat 3, and honestly, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 for sure deserves an honorable mention in this list. But the second one in the series, for the changes they made from the first one that we saw on the Super Nintendo, I think this one is absolutely an essential game to have on the Super Nintendo. And honestly, you can pick this one up for like 15 bucks and get a really great fighting game that you can have a lot of fun playing. Another absolute must-have essential game for the Super Nintendo is gonna be Super Castlevania 4. Right from the intro, this game sets a mood and a tone that it really follows through with. If you've played any of the Castlevania games on the Nintendo, this one should make you feel right at home pretty quickly. And that's not just because it has that ever rage-inducing knockback feature when you get hit. Jump, jump, no! I've died in that pit more times than I can count. Super Castlevania 4 is an epic addition to the series. This one has amazing music, some really awesome levels, and honestly, what they do with the Mode 7 in this game sets it apart from a lot of other games. Yeah, the controls can be pretty difficult if you're like me and just want to charge into every single battle, but really, if you can just take a second and figure out what the game wants you to do, Super Castlevania 4 is a really amazing game. I'm talking like a top 10 game for a lot of people. Just the music alone puts this game head and shoulders above a lot of other games on the system. This one deserves to be an essential game for the system. And coming in at about $50, this one will for sure give you much more than $50 worth of fun. But it might cost you another $50 for a controller when you get knocked into every pit by every bat and every Medusa head you come in contact with. Now the next one, some people might not agree with. They might pick F-Zero over this one. But for me, one of my all-time favorite racing games on the Super Nintendo is Super Mario Kart. Now, I know the Mario Kart series has changed and grown since this initial outing, but for anyone that has ever played a Mario Kart game on any platform, this one is responsible for all of it. For me, this one is an essential. I mean, it's Super Mario Kart. It's why so many of us kids begged our parents to take us go-karting. It's probably the reason there were so many go-kart tracks back in the 90s and early 2000s. I can remember putting this one in for the very first time and falling madly in love with it. Now, I never owned F-Zero, and for everything that it is, it absolutely could be on an essentials list like this. But for me, Super Mario Kart was life for a long time after I raced that very first track. Getting to play as those classic characters, playing in those familiar environments that we'd seen in the previous Mario games, made this one feel like home to me. With those characters we all knew and loved as the drivers, this one had me hooked. And honestly, getting to race around as Bowser or a Koopa, to me, that was awesome. There's a lot of great racing games on the Super Nintendo, but for me, at a price tag of about $34, Super Mario Kart is always going to be an essential game in my collection. Even though now, as an adult, I fall off the corners of every Haunted Mansion and Rainbow Road I race in, I still think this is an amazing game. And if there was a 10-year-old version of me standing there watching me play Super Mario Kart now, he would be so disappointed in the adult version of me.
There's only one thing they're into as much as Domino's Pizza. Now, order Domino's and get your Domino's $25 million Nintendo Instant Win game card with a chance to win thousands of free Super NES, Game Boy systems, Super Mario Kart games, plus savings on pizza and Coke Classic. Call Domino's. You can win Nintendo stuff. Wow! And try our new Domino's Twisty Bread, free with our unlimited topping medium, just $9.99.
Yep, I'm gonna put Super Punch-Out on this list. Just because it's Super Punch-Out. It's my list, I'll do what I want. I know that a lot of people aren't going to agree with a lot of the games on this Essentials list, either for the price of the games or the games themselves. So I really do encourage you to tell me in the comments, what are some games that you would put on an Essentials list for the Super Nintendo. Remember, this is only part 1 of this list. Next week, there will be a part 2, so maybe there's some games on that list that would be on your lists as well. But for this one, I am putting Super Punch-Out on my list. Super Punch-Out came to us on October 24th, 1994, and really is more closely related to the arcade version of Punch-Out than it is to the Mike Tyson's Punch-Out that we saw on the NES. But honestly, for the graphics alone, this one is an amazing game. We get to see some returning characters from the first game. We also get to see 3 characters that come to us from that arcade version of Super Punch-Out, a version of Super Punch-Out that I can remember playing at a restaurant when I was a kid and getting my butt kicked in. And all of those characters are super awesome looking. This one is a lot harder than that NES version we saw. Really, at the end of the day, it's just a pattern recognition game. And honestly, there's a ton of patterns to try to remember in this one, along with a ton of characters. Sadly though, with all the characters we get to see in Super Punch-Out, Doc is missing from that character list. Come on, Nintendo, like what's up with that? This one might not be for everyone, and it might not be on your Super Nintendo Essentials list, but because I get to see some of those characters from the arcade version that I do remember, and because it's just Punch-Out at $34, this game is a great game to have in your collection, even if for you, it might not be an essential one. All right, the last one for part 1 of this list, coming in at about $100, is going to be the Super Nintendo version of Sunset Riders. Sunset Riders on the Super Nintendo is one of the best games you can play on the system, in my opinion. I have such fond memories of this game, playing as those cowboys on the Super Nintendo, that as an adult, I tracked down the arcade cabinet so I could have it in my house, just so I could have my friends over and play 4-player Sunset Riders anytime I wanted. Sunset Riders is a game that a lot of people talk very highly of. This is absolutely an essential game in my Super Nintendo collection. I know Riff and the boys over at Pixel Game Squad would agree with that. This one is one they talk very highly about. For me, based on nostalgia for the Super Nintendo version, based on the fact that it's just a great game with great character sprites, great gameplay, and great music, this is one that I totally love. From running across the backs of cattle in a stampede to picking up that TNT and throwing it back at an enemy just in the nick of time, this game is worth every single penny to have it in my Super Nintendo collection. So that's part 1 of my Essentials game list for the Super Nintendo. Leave me your list in the comments. Let me know what games I'm missing. Remember, there will be part 2 to this list next week, so there's probably some games on that part of the list that might be on your list. But let me know what you think they are. I mean, honestly, there's so many great games on the Super Nintendo. I couldn't just make this into one video. I'm really excited to look at some of the other awesome games on the system next week.